I've tried to tell this story before, over and over to myself, but I always ended up like deleting the vlog or the footage. And I think it's time now to share with everyone from the very beginning up until now my weight loss story. And some of the points I want to drive home, I want to share that it was very much a mental thing as it was a physical thing. It's very easy to say, I know for me, when you see somebody that's gone through this, like a change in physique, like, how did that happen? How did they get to that point? And, well, I lived it. And as cathartic as it is for me to tell this story, I want to help people. Because there were times throughout this whole process that I felt very alone. No matter if I had my family or friends beside me. When you're the one going through something, it can feel very isolating and discouraging. And I don't want anyone to feel like that, especially if your story is anywhere near like mine. So, to set the scene from the very beginning, I was max 115 to 120 pounds in high school and a little bit after I graduated. Soon as I graduated, I got a full-time job and I started going to school full-time. And it was easy then to maintain a schedule because before class, every morning I was dedicated to go work out in the rec room. Just go run some laps, do some weights. And I was living at home, so the eating wasn't too bad. Now, I don't come from a background of like extensive cooking, but there were mostly home-cooked meals. We didn't eat out that much. You know, it was pretty easy to maintain my diet and my physique. In 2011, I got married at 19, moved out on my own, while still continuing to work full-time and go to school full-time. Now, getting married so young and being thrust naively into the world while maintaining everything else can kind of take a toll on somebody. At least it did for me. And soon, bringing home a paycheck and making sure the home was taken care of was a little more important than, you know, maintaining a diet or physical activity. And this was all very slowly over time, you know, eroded. It took a long time slowly to gain all that weight and to become affected mentally. At the beginning of the marriage, our relationship evolved, devolved, went through a transition. And as much as I agreed and was on board with certain things, I didn't realize what it was doing to me up here. It was slowly eating away my self-worth and how I would handle certain problems. Around 2012 to 2013 is when the heavier stuff started happening and when I believe the weight gain really started. My partner at the time was working like laborious jobs and the schedule was kind of like erratic. And most of the time I would eat when he would eat, when he would come home from work. And most of the time that was late. So what's open late? Fast food. And it was just here and there. We were living with family. I didn't really cook because like I felt like it's awkward. And I didn't have a lot of knowledge. I didn't really choose to learn, you know, too much. But that's where it started, the late night eating and slowly getting away from a schedule. Because also at that time, like I said, I was more concerned about paying our bills and I was losing focus in school. In 2012, I dropped out of college because the expenses were too high and, you know, I needed a roof over my head versus the degree. So that's what happened. Another factor in not putting any effort towards an exercise routine was the fact that I worked retail. I was on my feet for a lot of hours. I was forced to wear boots. And no matter how comfortable you make those things, you're still on your feet all those hours. And it was hard. There's temptation all over the place. You can get food. You could buy food. You're snacking from the machine. It was very rare that I brought food from home. And over time, like, you just get tired. Like, I'm too lazy when I get home. I don't want to work out. I don't want to cook. And it was just actively choosing not to take care of myself. Plus, subconsciously, I think, with everything going on in my personal life, food was a comfort. That 5-10 minutes that I could control and set my pleasure centers in my brain on fire by enjoying something, like a burger, it became almost like an addiction. Another thing was, it was also a portion control problem. When we would eat at home, I would see my partner eat a certain amount of food, and it was like a compulsion. I had to eat that much. We weren't going to go without, but just something in there just had me like eating the same amount he did. It was a slow buildup over time of all the things that were happening in my personal life. And I started to gain the weight. Starting to look myself in the mirror and not be happy. But I was too stuck in my ways to try to make a change, In around 2014, 2015, I got really, really sick. And I'm no stranger to like an irritable like bowel syndromes or like digestive problems. I thought it was just something like that. But it was a very sharp pain in my side. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't eat anything. I remember having to sleep sitting up, clutching a pillow and rocking myself to comfort, myself. At the time, I was still working retail. I didn't have health insurance. We were just going to wait it out because, maybe it'll pass. Judging by all the symptoms from being nauseated, I was throwing up bile. I think it was like gallstones from all the buildup of grease and bad food that I had been eating for years and not exercising. And it was very scary for me. I felt out of body, out of control. I told myself after I got through that ordeal, which was like a couple days, I never want to go through that again. And I knew it was a result from my bad habits. And by that point also, I realized I had really let myself go mentally and physically. I started to lose track of who I was and what I wanted, and I wasn't willing to fight for it. So giving up in all aspects of my life at this point, I take full responsibility for that. But sometimes you're so off track that you feel you can't get back to where you need to go. So even though I was already a certain size and I wanted to change, I already put a mental block in my head that, yeah, I could try to get better, but I'm never going to be like how I was when I graduated high school. And setting up that roadblock for failure or doubt, I set myself up to fail with that mentality.